Hi, I'm Mike Keys. If you've read my blog at www.mikekeys.com, you know that I've been developing banjo bridges for the Irish tenor banjo. Now, recently I've started taking up the cello banjo, in particular the CEB4 Marcy Marxer cello banjo made by Goldtone. And since I am a tinker, I decided to make some bridges for that, and it turns out that I've had some pretty good success with these bridges. And people have been asking me to make bridges for them. While I'm not exactly a bridge maker, I have made a lot of bridges for both tenor banjos and the cello banjo now. And I thought maybe I'd tell you how to go ahead and do it yourself. It doesn't take a lot of equipment. You can do it with a belt sander, which is probably the most important piece. Everything else can be done by hand. In fact, the sanding part could actually be done with files and a flat surface and sandpaper. It just takes a little bit longer. You would need a hand drill, however. Now, how did I design my bridges? Well, here is a blank bridge that I haven't quite finished yet, but you'll notice it has a peculiar shape, and this is a shape that I eventually came up to after studying several other bridges, and then also a cello bridge, ironically. Now, it's longer than the standard bridge. It's 9 centimeters, whereas the standard bridge is around 6 centimeters long. It has these ears that come out, and they separate the sound more than the standard bridge. And it has, you can't see it very well, but it has very small contact points. There's 4 of them, and the total surface area is much less than a standard bridge would be. Now, why did I come to this conclusion? Interestingly, because of a cello bridge. Now, this is a cello bridge, a standard cello bridge, and it's made out of maple. It's not the hardest maple. It's actually more of a European maple, which is somewhat soft. And it has a number of design features. One of them is that there's not a direct contact between the string and a direct linear contact between the string and the instrument itself. And all these curlicues and this odd shape has a purpose. It's not just there for just for a design. It has, in relation to the mass and the size of the bridge, a fairly small footprint, and that footprint is fitted to the cello itself. And it also has a straight side, which is right angles to the instrument, and then the front. This is the front. It is slanted like this. With my bridges, exactly the same way. This is the right angle side, and then it's slightly angled like this. And there's this seems to make a difference in the bridges for some reason. So what I'm going to do is show you how to go ahead and make one of these bridges. If you have the equipment in your shop, it's fairly easy. If you don't, the only equipment you really have to buy is a hand drill to drill a hole. This is a 1/4 inch hole right here that separates the 2 central feet. The rest of this is shaped with a belt sander, but you can also do the shaping with files and with sandpaper and a flat surface. Now, here's how I start out. Most fancy bridge makers take a very carefully selected piece of wood, and then they glue a strip of ebony on top. I have a nice piece of sapella wood that I use because sapella wood happens to work best with the cello banjos and also works fairly well with clawhammer banjos. And I glue a 1/4 inch piece of purple heart, which I get from a local wood dealer, to the top using standard carpenter's glue, tight bond, and clamping the heck out of it and letting it rest for a couple of days. And this seems to work quite well. I then take this to my bandsaw, and I cut off maybe a 1/4 of an inch. It depends on. I have a template that I use. I'm not really sure what the distance is, and then I come up with a blank that's the size of this, and that blank is what I use to start out the bridge. These bridges have been very successful for me and for a few other people, I haven't tried them much in 5-string, but they work quite well on the 4-string banjos and cello banjos and the 5-string cello banjo. We're going to go through step by step as how we deal with this now. Here is what the blank looks like, cut from this original piece of laminated wood. It's about 1/4 of an inch thick, and it's an inch deep, which means I can go up to an inch in size as far as the height of the bridge goes. As far as I know, there aren't any banjos that require 1 inch. But what I do is I take my ruler and I very carefully measure out this 9-centimeter blank. I use the metric system because it's just simply a lot easier to figure in. Now, since I want approximately a 6-millimeter top for the cello banjo, I mark it here at 1.5 centimeters and 1.5 centimeters at this end, which is at the 7.5 centimeter mark, and then I mark it at the 4.5 centimeter mark, and then I eyeball marks here and here because we'll be cutting off this area here in order to make the ears, and that's all there is to it. So my next step is to take this little device, which you can get at a good woodworking store. It's a flat surface at right angles. Place it with the Purple Heart top down to measure out the distance. And in this case, I'm going to go for 5/8 of an inch, and I measure out the 5/8 at either end. And then I measure the center piece here, and where it crosses, is a point that I use to drill a hole in it, and you'll see that in the next step. Now this is the next step. I've got my bridge blank with the marks on there on my drill press, and I use a Forstner bit. It's 1/4 of an inch. Forstner bit has a little point that it'll go right on the cross point here, and the idea is to have a half hole here, which is one of the ways I make the feet. So I'm going to be a little noisy. I'm going to turn I use all my safety equipment, including a face mask for this. Simply drill a hole there. The Forstner bit makes it very easy to drill a clean hole.